What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Rutgers Rundown podcast, episode number 19 here for you today. Nick Hart, alongside my co-host Matthew Mangam. And Matt, we're officially towards the end of the fall sports. Winter sports are starting up. Football obviously still in season. Rutgers basketball kicks off tomorrow. Rutgers women's basketball kicked off yesterday. So we got a whole lot to talk about. Matt, let's jump in real quick. Where are we going first, football or basketball?
Let's do football.
All right, let's get into football. It is a disappointing season for the Rutgers football team, to say the very least. Let me know if you've heard this one again. Rutgers goes on the road against a top-ranked Big Ten opponent, and they falter. 35-13 loss to Illinois. Defense, once again, was in shambles, to say the least. Offense couldn't get it done, and this has just been the story of the season, Matt.
Yeah, Nick, honestly, this one wasn't even close. This game was close in the first quarter, but after that, it was never close. And I mean, just an ugly game. You know, Rutgers gets that one last second garbage time touchdown. And you're right, the defense looked horrible. Just another bad game. And I mean, I really feel like there is very few promising times in that game. Ethan had a tough game. The defense was bad. So many guys like Jet Elad, not a good game from him. Who else is there? I don't know. Eric O'Neill actually didn't have that bad of a game, but, it's still not the greatest. And, yeah, now you face Maryland on Saturday, and it's literally, I mean, I can't believe I keep saying this, but that game is, if you don't win that game, your season is officially 100% over. I mean, we're all saying, if they beat Penn State on senior day, they can go bowling, they beat Maryland too, but, just week after week, seeing that defense doesn't give me any hope that they'll stop any of these Big Ten teams. And they couldn't even stop the non-conference teams. There is really not a lot of promising signs here, and it's just, every game feels like another punch in the gut kind of thing.
I mean, every game, it seems to be the same story over and over again, right? It's the offense is either hit or miss. The defense is terrible. Rutgers wins or Rutgers loses. Obviously, we've seen more losses than wins this year. But again, you look at the production from this team, right? And especially more so the offense, not the defense, right? And you say, man, Rutgers has the leading passer and the leading receiver in the Big Ten. And yet they are still a under 500 team, let alone having a running back in Antoine Raymond who's third in rushing yards in the country. Or not in the country, in the conference. It feels, again, I feel like a broken record. We say it every week, but this feels like a wasted season for Rutgers, right? Because you have the best offense that you've had in probably the better half of a decade, if not a full decade. And it's being overshown by a really, really bad defense. And if you, honest to God, if you look at this roster and you look at some of the top players on the offense, Ian Strong is probably going to get drafted this year.
Mm-hmm.
If KJ Duff was a senior or a junior, probably getting drafted this year. Ethan's out of eligibility. Nobody knows what Raymond's going to look like, where he's going to go. This team is in trouble, right? Because you're going to lose a lot of your offense next year. You're relying on AJ Serace, who hasn't really had a whole lot of tape on him. He hasn't played a ton of football. Granted, he got in a couple garbage time situations, but he doesn't have a lot. Obviously, Raymond comes back again, barring him hitting the transfer portal. But you don't know what's going to happen with Ian Strong, or fairly certain Ian Strong goes to the draft. You don't really know what's going to happen with KJ Duff if, in fact, Ian Strong goes, because, they have that connection. They were high school teammates. But then if you look at it from the perspective of KJ Duff, right, you're a guy who is probably going to finish in the top 5 in receiving yards in the Big Ten. You're a guy who is thinking about coming back to a program who is not going to have your starting quarterback next year. You're not going to have the same starting quarterback. And you're in the world of NIL, right? I'm sure there's teams foaming at the mouth, waiting for the offseason to hit to send a bag KJ Duff's way.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that's a SEC school, ACC school, whatever, maybe even a Big Ten school, hell. But there is going to be people chomping at the bit to be sending him NIL deals in this upcoming offseason. I think the same thing is going to be true for Raymond. Raymond's having a really nice season, but look ahead. They play Maryland this week, Rutgers, that is at home, at second to last home game of the season. And yeah, Matt, we talked about Purdue being a must-win game. This is a must-win game.
Yeah.
Because you have 3 games left. Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State. You're favored slightly in the Maryland game. I'm sure as hell would bet that you're not going to be favored in the Ohio State game. Probably not going to be a favorite in the Penn State game either.
No, I don't think so.
And realistically, let me ask you this question, Matt. If this Rutgers team finds a way to make it to a bowl, A, what's the likelihood they win that bowl game?
0. They're not winning
B,
a bowl game.
What do they really belong in a bowl game? Yes, the record says 6 wins, you're in a bowl. But watching this team week in and week out, they don't belong in a bowl game.
No, the defense is historically bad. I remember seeing on Twitter some of the numbers. This is actually one of the worst defenses in like Big Ten history. At least, and then for Rutgers, it's the worst defense in Rutgers history, pretty much, with the yards giving up per game, rushing yards given up per game, receiving yards given up per game. It's bad, Nick. And yes, you're 100% correct. If, big if, Rutgers beats Maryland Saturday and then beats Penn State on senior day and they go bowling, I would confidently say there is not a single chance that they win that bowl game, because look how they beat Purdue. Purdue's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Not as bad as Rutgers, you could say, but it took a Jay Patel field goal to win that game. And all the other Big Ten games, yeah, maybe there were promising moments at times, but they just couldn't find a way to win those games. It's their second. The Illinois game was their second, beat down, embarrassing defeat in 2 weeks. And yeah, now you face Maryland with the odds. I keep flipping. I keep seeing Rutgers you're favored by like 1.1.5, and Maryland's favored by 1.5. It keeps switching. So that game's even though yes, it's home and Rutgers is probably expected to win it, it's still not like a guaranteed win. Like look at the Purdue game. People were kind of chalking that as that should be a win, and look how close it came. So I don't know. I think you're right with the bowl game. You make a bowl game, who cares? They're not playing good. The defense sucks. All that stuff. And I agree, but I think the fans will be a little bit more happier because recency bias is a thing, and they'll say, okay, it made a bowl game at least. But for the program, things got to change. It's not about you make a bowl game, all right, next season is another season. You're losing a lot of players, like you said, and if you keep this coaching staff, it's going to be a problem because look where it's been the past few years. It hasn't been any progress at all.
Well, I think the bigger question is, when does the identity of this program, when does the foundation of this program switch, right? Because, great, the first couple years back of Greg Schiano 2.0, if you will, it was, hey, if he can bring us to a 6-win, 7-win season, get us to a bowl game, that's a successful season in our eyes. But we're in year, I don't even know, what is it? Year 5, year 6 of Greg Schiano 2.0? When did it come back? 2020, right?
December 2019, so yeah. So his first season was the 2020 season.
This is the 6th season of Greg Schiano 2.0. The last 2 seasons you made a bowl game, you had a winning record. When is that not enough? Because honestly, last year I think it was not enough. Rutgers won 7 football games last year in a schedule where they realistically could have won every single game they were in.
Yeah.
Should have beat Illinois. Should have beat USC. USC was not that great of a team. Granted, they got blown out. Had to have beaten UCLA because they were a bad football team coming into New Brunswick. You got blasted by Wisconsin. And you lost to a Nebraska team who you only put up 7 points. It's got to change, right? There needs to be a fundamental shift in the ideology of this program. Fans can't be happy with 6-6. Coaches can't be happy with 6-6. Players can't be happy with 6-6. When does Rutgers make that jump? Where you go from a team where, you lose 3 games in a season, you consider that a failed season. Look at some of the teams in the top 25 right now, right? Basically, everybody in the top 10 is what? A 1-loss team? 2-loss team? And the standard there is not, hey, let's limp our way to a bowl game every year, right? The standard is we want to be one of the best damn football teams in the country. Now, listen, I'm not asking for all that from Rutgers, but look at the top teams, right? There's only one team in the top 10 who has more than 1 loss, and it's Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Playoff contention, there's 2 teams that have 2 losses. Notre Dame, Oklahoma. For them, 3 losses is not a good season. 4 losses, and the season was a waste. Well, guess what? Rutgers did that 4 games in a row, And then they went out and they lost 4 of 6. Something's got to change, right? You don't, and I don't know if it's just, I don't know what it is, honestly. I don't know if it's coaching, if it's just the message from the coaching staff, whatever it is, something's got to be different, because you cannot sit here year in and year out and be okay with, all right, let's beat the 3 non-conference teams on their schedule. Let's beat up on them and make ourselves look good, which, oh, by the way, you only really beat up on 2 of those teams. You didn't beat up on Ohio.
Yeah.
But then we're going to lose to every middle-of-the-road Big Ten team and then maybe pull out a win against the bottom feeders in a Purdue, a Maryland, Michigan State. And it's even more frustrating, Matt, because you look at the 4 games in a row they lost, with the exception of Oregon. Probably should have beaten Iowa. They were in that game the entire time. If special teams did what special teams are supposed to do, they beat Minnesota. You were beating Washington at halftime and then imploded in the second half. And then Oregon was a straight up beatdown. At what point, Matt, does the culture change? What does it take for the culture to change?
I think you agree. I think you know what I'm gonna say here. I think it's get rid of Shiano. It's. What do you think? I feel like you have to.
I mean, I don't know if it's a full regime change, right? Maybe you change up play calling. I mean, I think it's fairly certain to say that the defensive play calling has been an issue this year. The defensive coordinators. I don't know. I don't know if, from 2 angles, right? You look at it from the angle of he's contracted through 2030. Is the school going to pay that buyout? But then you look at it from the angle of also who's out there that's going to be a better coach here.
Yeah, that's true.
Because realistically, in the coaching pool right now, you know you're not getting James Franklin. You know you're not getting Lane Kiffin. Are you going to go out and fire a guy who has been vaguely successful here? I don't know if vaguely is the right word, but somebody that's been somewhat successful here in New Brunswick, right? And are you going to replace them with, say, a first-time head coach or a first-time coordinator if you switch up the coordinators, right? That's the question I have, and I don't really know, because I feel like there's glimpses with these programs, right? With this team in the past. They've shown glimpses of being a really good football team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what, the offense is pretty good this year. I question what happens on the defense, and I question... I don't even know what I question at this point, Matt. I'm not going to be honest with you. But I think there has to be something that changes. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's whatever. But at some point, every other school has done it. Look at Indiana. They're a team that never won. Never won. Rutgers beat up on them 2 years ago.
They got their ability in that game.
And guess what? Now they're the number 2 team in college football. And arguably one of the scariest teams to play outside of maybe Ohio State.
Yeah, Rutgers has to take notes. What did Indiana do? Rutgers has to take notes. That's an example of what you got to do with a program.
If Rutgers can be a team, right, that can be a perennial 7-8 win team and every 5 years, say, make a run, I think Rutgers fans are overjoyed. Because there's no reason not to. You have the people in place now, whether it's the president, the AD, who are athletic-minded people, who are NIL-focused people, who are looking to push that initiative. You got to make it happen eventually. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, it remains to be seen what will happen, what will happen. But I think if this program continues to be like this, I think Kelly Zinn will make changes. Look at her expectations to win, and obviously I'm not saying after this year. I get it, but if this continues happening, there will be changes made. Not just with Rutgers football, but primarily talking about Shauna here in Rutgers football. If this keeps happening, you're right. It's like no progress will be made at all. So you got to do something differently. But it just feels like they're wasting that offense still, and it's tough.
Well, we shall see. Still 3 games left. Obviously, Ohio State going to be a tough game. Penn State maybe a winnable game. Haven't been the best this season, and then Maryland this weekend. If you lose that game, the season is all but over. You can pack it up, put it in the books, as the great Howie Rose once said. But I'll tell you what, Matt. There's a sport starting up, which there's some... Well, actually, before we get into that, we'll say shout out Rutgers women's basketball taking down Wagner last night.
Yes.
In the season opener. We're going to talk a little bit about men's basketball, though. Men's basketball starting the season today. Or
Wednesday.
tomorrow, excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the vibe is around this team. I think people kind of have expectations, and I think they're fairly low, especially after a season last year where the expectation was really high and this team fell flat on its face.
Look, as someone who, I didn't get to cover the team last year, but I was around a little bit. I got to say, it was cool to have, at the beginning of the year, have that hype for wow, they seem like really good. Rutgers is on the verge of a great season. And then see all that happen. Obviously, it sucked. But, that's the past. You can't dwell on the past anymore. Pikel this, Pikel that, the defense is the defense that. It's happening. This is what's happening now. This is the team he has. And all offseason, Pikel's been saying, we're working hard while no one's watching. I like it like that. We're underdogs. And then that's what the team was in the past. They were that underdog team who, you weren't expecting all the success, but then they would go and beat teams. Remember, the rack would be a place where teams would go to ranked
Reapers, baby.
Yeah, ranked teams would go to die in the rack. And I'm not saying it's going to happen this year with this team, new look team. It will take some time. Pikel obviously derives off getting a guy and then building him. By the time he's a junior or senior, he's, a really good player. Look at Caleb McConnell comes to mind. Geo Baker, guys like that. Ron Harper Jr., guys that stayed with Rutgers and developed in their career. And by the time they were seniors, they were really good players. So the biggest thing for Rutgers this season I don't think it's about winning a ton of games. I mean, obviously that's important, but I think it's just about developing guys and keeping them. Harun Zerno, obviously a three-point shooter from Bosnia. He's going to be really important for this team. Talking about the freshmen primarily here, Chris Newley. Pikel's given him tons of praise, saying he's extremely athletic, full of energy. Dennis Badalou, obviously, too. And then, the other freshman, Caden Powers, Mark. And then you have the transfers who come in, like Tyreek Francis, Darren Buchanan Jr., and Biafal. And it's interesting because, yes, this team, the expectations are low, but also there's not really a lot of, there's a lot of mystery around this team. It's kind of like who will be the primary scorer, who will be the rebounder, who will be the shooters, who will be the best defenders, who will be the guys Pikel trusts. Some of that could be answered. You got Jermichael Davis, will get his roles. Dylan Grant will get his role in this team. Akbole will definitely get his minutes, even though maybe that won't last for very long. But I don't know. I think the biggest key, like I said, after this year is you have guys that, they had solid. Maybe we didn't do good this year. Maybe we didn't, we didn't go 500 in the Big Ten. We won only 6-7 Big Ten games. Maybe that's what happened. But guys like Darren Buchanan, Dylan Grant, who else would I say? Harun Zorno and let's say Dennis Badalou too. They had good years. Chris Newley, they had good years. Keep them for another year, develop them, and then there's a hope for the future of the program.
See, here's my thoughts going into the season. I feel like this is more of a Steve Pikel team.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you watched them at media day, you watched the practice, and all the players have talked about it. Just simply how physical this team is on defense, which is music to my ears after a season last year where it seemed like defense was not even on the minds of some of these players.
Like the football team.
Shout out. But you think about it, and Steve Pikel in his tenure has always been a guy who is a defensive-minded coach. I mean, the running gag was always you keep him under the Pikel speed limit of 65 points, you're going to win basketball games.
Yeah.
How many times did we see that last year? Slim to none.
Yeah, no.
And I think this team, just looking at the guys and seeing the size and how physical they are, this already seems like a team that is more of a team that is put together by Steve Pikel than last year, right?
Yeah.
Last year, it really seemed like Rutgers was trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle. The problem was they had the wrong pieces, except for Dylan and Ace, right? You know when you start a puzzle and you do the outside, like you do the corners and you do the border and the perimeter? Well, they had that in Ace and Dylan. But then they were trying to fit pieces from a different puzzle into that puzzle.
Yeah, that's
and
actually a really good analogy. Wow.
And it just didn't work, right? On paper, it looked like it was supposed to work. They looked at the picture on the box and they said, perfect. Then they started putting the puzzle together and they're like, uh-oh, we have a problem here.
It was too late, yeah.
But this team seems like more of a team that's going to be defensive-minded. The scoring will come. And Matt, to answer your question, I don't know if you're going to see somebody that's going to be, yes, obviously you're going to have your primary scorer, but I don't think you see anybody really jump out and lead the pack, right? Like I don't think you're going to see somebody that's averaging 28 points a game and the next guy is averaging 15. I think you're going to see your leading scorer with 17 points a game and your second
Really,
leading
17?
scorer, I would say 17 to 20 points a game.
That's the range Harper averaged last year. That's why.
All right, so maybe less. Maybe I'll say 15.
I was going to say even like 12, but that's just me.
But you get my point.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying.
yeah.
I think it's gonna. There's not
not
gonna be a
one
drop
guy,
off.
not one guy.
It's
and
not going to
everyone
be
else.
17%, and then the next leading score is 10.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to have a group of guys who's all within the same range. Everybody's going to do their job, understand their assignment, and I think that's going to win Rutgers some basketball games this year. Two players I am very interested in seeing play is both Zerno and Badalo, right? Both guys who have had professional experience. They've played overseas, are technically true freshmen, but are more mature than a true freshman. You know, they're not 18 years old coming here to play basketball, right?
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see how their style of play is able to mesh with the Big Ten style of play, right? Because, I mean, you've seen all of the, what's it called? Like the Euro Cup, and even when the United States plays in the Olympics. It's a different style of basketball. And the Big Ten is very physical, very defensive first. So it'll be a true test of how they can adapt their game, I think.
I think the positive is that this team, Pikel's preached all offseason was rebounding, because the last 2 years Rutgers has sucked at rebounding, to put it, honestly. And Pikel said it at Media Day with Aussie said it at Media Day in Chicago. He said it with Jerry Recco on his season preview, Rebounding is the biggest thing, and I can even quote him. He literally said, "This group spent a ton of time on rebounding. You're not going to play if you don't rebound, and we're going to get back to that, because it's why I think we missed the last 2 years more than anything." So, Pikel understands that, look, they were bad last year and the year before because of the rebounding. They were giving up a lot of second chance points, and then offensively, they weren't getting offensive boards, and they weren't getting, their own second chance points. So you're right, Nick, with saying that this team is big. They're physical. They have length. I think that's important. I just really wonder where that scoring will come from. And I think, if you want, I'll throw some predictions out already, what I have, just from based on what I've listened to and what I've seen. I think a guy like Darren Buchanan will be really important defensively too. He's a good scorer, but 6'7". Wow, how ironic. 6'7" guard from George Washington. He brings, just length and everything. 6'7" too, so that's good height. How ironic. Yeah, I think Darren Buchanan will be important defensively, and I think he will also be important, like I said, scoring too, because he did at George Washington. But yeah, it really is just a matter of who will be the best defender. I think Chris Newley is also a guy that will get a lot of time. Like I said, the freshman forward, I think he'll get a lot of time. And then Dylan Grant too. Last year he was a great defender, great when it comes to dunking the ball. He needs to work on his 3-point shooting, but I think he'll be better this year. And then JaMychal Davis too. How did I forget about him? One of the most, one of the veterans on the team. Always been great defending. His offense is non-existent, but that's not what he's really there for as the point guard. So I think, there's a few things you got to figure out with this team is who will be the scorer, who will be the best defender, which freshman will make an impact. So there's a lot of questions to be answered, but I think as long as you answer those questions and you have guys you can develop over the seasons, that's okay, because this year for Pikel is not about NCAA tournament. It's not about, beating ranked teams. It's not about being one of the best teams in the Big Ten. It's just about winning games and, developing these players. And I know I sound like a sucker for the program right now, but it is true. This is a rebuild year. It is.
I'm very interested, Matt, and let me know what you think. I'm very interested to see how Emmanuel Ogbole fits into this scheme, right? I feel like last year the pace that Rutgers tried to play with was too fast for his play style.
Yeah.
Last year was very run and gun, fast break, ISO ball, whatever you want, all those things. So I'd be pretty interested to see how different this team looks, and B, how Ogbole fits into this rotation of guys, right? Because he's a big dude. He's athletic as all hell. I mean, just looking at him, he looks like a superhero. He's so big, so muscular. it's almost a shame that he wasn't as dominant last year as the look says. I think he'll be good. I think by fall, we'll have a nice year. I am very interested to see the play of Chris Nwoli. I remember talking to him during media day, and he said something along the lines of basically him and a teammate got into an argument at practice over who was the better defender.
Oh, him and Buchanan.
So
that's why I said Buchanan, I think, is going to be a good defender.
I'm very interested to see that. And Nwoli seems like a guy who is going to be very passionate about the game. He's going to put it all out there. He's going to work hard. Great with the media, too. He was awesome to talk to.
Yeah, he was cool.
Very not what you would expect from a freshman, right? I feel like sometimes you get some guys who kind of get a little shy with the media, especially when they're first put in front of a camera or a microphone. But Nwoli was awesome. I think the biggest thing for this team, which is something that they didn't have last year, was what is their identity going to be? And that's going to be huge because last year that was the problem. They didn't know if they wanted to be a running gun team, a team that could play defense, a team that was going to outscore you, out physical you. They didn't know, right? It was different every game. There was a different hero every game, if you will. I think this team has to set the precedent early. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like this is going to be a very defense-first team.
Yeah. I think if you're a fan of offense, don't watch Rutgers this year. Last year's fine. You had the Ace Bailey crazy dunks, Dylan Harper nice threes and everything, and drives to the basket past 3 or 4 guys. But if you're a fan of offense, go somewhere else. Don't watch Rutgers. Don't watch Iowa. Don't watch those programs. Go watch Purdue. Go watch Michigan. Do not watch Rutgers. Also, if you're a fan of winning, too, for that matter.
All right, come on. The season hasn't even started.
No. I'm just gotta make a little joke.
You gotta give the boys a little bit of credit.
No, I mean, like, honestly, I think Rutgers will be a decent team. Like, I think they'll win a few Big Ten games they're not supposed to win. I think they actually very well could be Notre Dame. I was actually looking at the Ken Palm rankings and everything, Nick. Notre Dame is not too far off Rutgers. I think Rutgers is like in the 70, 80 range, and Notre Dame's right around there, too. So I think they'll win some games. They'll definitely beat some teams at home in Big Ten. Like, I think they'll beat Northwestern. I think they'll beat Nebraska at home. But, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the most important thing is you get 5 guys at the end of the year. Okay, these guys are 5 guys that are good. They'll be back next year. Let's keep them and develop them and keep them on the bank so we can get them back for another year and develop this team. Because the past few years, you've seen it. It's been basically new lineups, starting lineups every single year. There's not a consistent with this team. And that's what Pikel's always saying. Oh, like Jermichael, every time I ask about Jermichael Davis, the most loyal guy in college basketball nowadays, we have him for 3 years. Hopefully he can be here back for a 4th. That's true. Every year they're losing guys left, right, and center, and maybe they'll bring back 1 or 2 guys, but like that's the thing. They're not bringing back a consistent lineup, and it's always like the puzzle thing. Like you're always building, you have parts, but you're not always completing the puzzle. They need to complete the puzzle, and it will take time, but I think this year is a start for that, to rebuild the program forward.
Matt, I'm going to give you one more analogy before we wrap things up. You know what this Rutgers team is this year?
What?
2017 New York Yankees.
Okay.
Weren't supposed to be anything. It was kind of a group of guys they pulled from everywhere. And listen, they made a run. Can this Rutgers team make a run? We don't know. We'll see what it looks like tomorrow as they take on Rider. And then we'll see once Big Ten play starts. That's really the litmus test, if you will, the eye test, whatever you want to call it, of whether this team is going to be able to hang. Obviously, you have some of the best teams in college basketball in the conference. Purdue, always going to be good. But it'll be interesting to see. Great to see basketball back. Love college basketball. I feel like there's games on at pretty much every hour of the day. But don't forget, college football is still going on. Rutgers football is still hanging on to life by a thread. But maybe basketball can bring us some new life into this sports year that has been very disappointing for Rutgers. One that was supposed to be a little more prosperous than many thought. But, hey, you never know until you see the product out on the court. Again, I feel like it's more of a Steve Pikel team, something that he's used to. And he said it in media day. He said, listen, we're not used to having 5 stars here. We're used to having guys that, grind and work their way up to these programs. And he's not wrong.
Yeah, he's right. He's completely right.
That's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, you can check us out on YouTube at The Daily Targum. You can check us out online, dailytargum.com. Social media at The Daily Targum as well. Nick Hart, Matt Mangum signing off for episode number 19 of the Rutgers Rundown podcast. Make sure you keep it tuned next week for some more Rutgers football action, see if their season is still going to be on life support, and Rutgers basketball coming up in the coming weeks right here on the Rutgers Rundown podcast.